Welcome to Figure Skating Land. This is your host, Jilly. This week, I'm going to be discussing Aliona Kostornaia. I'm going to include information from the two-part docuseries, as well as information from articles I read online, as well as just kind of lived experience of her 2019-2020 season. And before I get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe. So for those of you all who don't know, Aliona Kostornaia is a Russian figure skater who had an extremely successful senior debut in the 2019 and 2020 season.
She is special.
Who switched to pair skating after kind of a series of controversies that we'll get into here in a little bit. Before I get started though, I do want to kind of give some informed consent beforehand to inform you that the docuseries that I reviewed was translated from Russian to English with warnings beforehand that's saying that some of the information may not be fully accurate. I also know that translated articles from Russian to English can sometimes not be fully accurate as well. So please keep that in mind while I'm discussing this information. I also want to note that while I'm discussing some of this information, I am discussing the stuff I've watched or read kind of in the context of an individual from America, and there could be cultural factors that I unintentionally do not consider while discussing her history and information from the series. Overall, I must say, after reviewing everything, Kostornaia has so many different ways that she's depicted in various forms of media. On one hand, you'll see that she is described as strong-willed, a perfectionist, but also she's described as unmotivated and lazy. So one thing though that is for sure is Aliona seems to be honest, in which I appreciate that about her, and does not seem to mind sharing her thoughts and feelings with others. So for those of you all who don't know, the docuseries, it was created to focus on Kostornaia's transition to pairs and to capture the training session for the test skates in 2024. And it includes many of her different former coaching and training staff, but nope, Eteri is not interviewed. There are clips with her in it, but she is not interviewed in it. Also, sports journalist Maya from Russia is also included, and I've always found her to be such a delight whenever we get to see her interviews with Dave Leese or anybody else. She just has a nice perspective because she shares kind of Russian viewpoints, but also is able to see Western viewpoints as well. One thing's for certain, kind of with this docu-series, as well as just articles anyway, not a whole lot of things really paint Aliona in the best light. And yeah, it does seem that she does kind of have like a low distress tolerance, but also while watching this documentary, I couldn't help but wonder, are we watching this in the context of someone who already may be a little feisty and then they have increased stress? Because this is around the time that it seems that they're trying to decide about their partnership and just noticing a lot of tension. So that's one of the kind of the first things I was wondering, because I don't know if I've got to see a lot of things from Kostornaia. Of course I don't get to see her being interviewed because she's mostly interviewed in Russian, but I'm not quite sure, how she is outside of this context. We see her skating, and we see her kind of throwing a jacket at Eteri at one point, but we don't really see a lot of over here in America, any interactions she has outside of maybe when she's speaking Russian or basically this documentary. So overall, some key points from the docuseries and from my review. So Aliona's talent was really noticed at a young age, and there was also some foreshadowing into her future of pair skating. So kind of the largest theme that I noticed from the docuseries is Aliona's natural talent. And when it comes to skating, so many people throughout the series discussed her skating skills and how amazing. And even Elizaveta was on there talking about how Kostornaia's skating skills were unmatched. We learned from the series that her mother enrolled her into figure skating because she had such high energy as a kid and she kept falling. So of course, I guess the next natural transition was to put her in skating so that she can be in a sport that will teach her how to fall. And it seems like her mother, kept nudging her to go back to skating. One of the vibes I got throughout a lot of the video was, her mom was very focused on her daughter's skating abilities and also results. Now, of course, skating is different in Russia. So in America, there's not a whole lot of opportunities for someone that is skating, but, I can't help but wonder kind of how that natural talent based upon also kind of looking into the future, seeing the opportunities, but also I don't know the whole entire vibe between Aliona and her mother. And I also found it interesting that kind of no matter what Aliona has reported about her training conditions at Team Tutberidze, that her mother still to this day says it was a mistake for her to switch. She should have stayed. So I found that interesting. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, so her mother, pushed her to keep on skating, and her coach at the time said that she advised her mother for her to continue giving her talent. It was also reported during an interview once that her coach referred to her as a hooligan, and that makes me amused because I didn't think that could ever translate like one-on-one from like Russian to English, so that kind of amused me. But anyway, she also described Aliona as stubborn as a child, but knew that she would stick with it eventually. And so Aliona wanted to hang out with her friends, but interesting enough, she found when she wasn't skating that she was bored. So she ended up staying with skating. And there was kind of that foreshadowing with the pairs. So her mother had mentioned that when she was really little, they went to this recruitment event where there were 90 children involved. Most of them were like small 4-year-olds. And I don't know if that means Aliona was 4 at the time, but the recruiter mentioned that out of all the 90 skaters, only Kostornaia will skate and will be in pairs. And so Aliona kept, progressing, and she became a master of the sport at age 12. Now, I looked that up, and I believe that's just kind of the steps. It's almost like our novice and so on, but I'm not 100% sure, so please correct me if I'm wrong about that. And so she was becoming such a jumper. Like at one point, her mother entered the rink and saw that, oh my gosh, there's this girl that's jumping way above the boards. And then she realized that was her daughter. And so this brings us to her joining Eteri and the beginning of the triple axel saga. So Aliona decided she would need to transfer given how much progress she was making. She knew that in order to succeed, she would need to move on. And she was at a competition once. She was warming up with Eteri skaters and saw that they could do a run through of their short program several times through a 3 to 6 minute warm up. Interesting. Anyway, so she joined Eteri's camp in 2017 and progressed fairly quickly, but there was always this bang in the background of she needs an ultra C element. And so with the triple axel, Aliona initially did not want to learn it, and her mother beforehand, even I think before she joined Eteri's camp, had been going through these exercises with her to try to get her to help her to do it. And Eteri, though, reportedly told her, like, if you don't learn this, you need to go skate in the village. I need to Google what that means. In fact, hold up, let's Google it. Okay. Obviously, I don't know how to Google this properly because literally nothing came up, but I tried. Something that was really kind of cool is, so she was able to land it on the first try, despite being afraid to do it. And to me, that is just wild because you hear about skaters all of the time having to train this jump, but according to her, she just landed it. So overall, this information about her, needing to get the triple axel initially is interesting because I can think of some Eteri skaters that do not have the Ultra C elements. However, also, I think her name was Daria. She ended up getting injured, and so we really don't know if that's something that caused her to be injured was her trying to get these elements, but that was just some kind of insight. I mean, we already knew that there are these expectations, but that really spelled it out. And this brings us to Alana's junior international debut. So actually, Aliona joined Eteri right as she was debuting as an international junior skater. This was around the 2017-2018 season. So while she was successful, she wasn't seen as maybe Eteri or even like Russia successful because she only won 1 gold medal, and that was with her first Grand Prix assignment in Poland. And then she ended up winning silver, I think, the rest of the season at her other Grand Prix assignment, at the Grand Prix final, at the World Junior Championships, Russian Junior Championships. I actually went back and watched the programs from the Grand Prix, the Grand Prix final. And it took me a moment where I was like, where the hell are her jumps? And then it hit me, oh yeah, this is like a moment in time where skaters would, well, mainly Eteri skaters, would backload their programs in order to get a bonus on their jumps. And so it was really kind of neat to see that moment in time again. But one thing that stuck out to me is even back then as a junior, she skated so gracefully. And it was just a nice blast from the past to see her skate again. And just watching it made me miss her skating, but I digress. So it seems as if she gained the triple axel her first season of Eteri, but I don't think she did it in competition. Correct me if I'm wrong. I went back and tried to look. I didn't see, and I didn't also see it in the clips I watched, but please leave me a comment if I'm wrong about this. It seems though that she lost it during the off season in between the 2017-2018 to 2018-2019 junior seasons. And she had mentioned that she had went through a growth spurt and had to relearn it. So despite this, though, she did win both of her Grand Prix assignments this year and even won the Junior Grand Prix final. And she was set to compete in the 2019 World Junior Championships, but had to withdraw due to leg inflammation. And this is kind of the beginning of her, actually, like just her overall bad luck or whatever when it comes to the World Championships. Back then, she was probably set to possibly win, depending on how Alexandra Trusova would do, because I know Alexandra Trusova had won the year before. So once again, we'll talk about this soon, is her luck when it comes to the World Championships. Oh my gosh. And for the 2019-2020 senior debut, so Kostornaia became an instant figure skating star at this time. Like, this was for everyone who likes figure skating. It didn't mean like she was a household name in America, but for all the Americans, I'll say all, as if every single one of us, but a large majority of the Americans who were figure skating fans loved her back then, loved her skating skills. Like, she was just a shining star for us. And I'm pretty sure back then she was huge in Russia as well. So at this time, like, we were so into not only her skating, but also we had some glimpses into her personality. I mean, there is this clip that still gets played. And I think this was during her junior season where she just throws her jacket at Eteri. And I know it was probably just a harmless thing, but it was just so funny that she just skating by and threw it, and we're like, that girl's interesting. So of course us Americans were like, we love her. But that's not the only reason why, but that just kind of added to it. And she just really gave this star power to figure skating that we have not seen in a while. And so during this season, she regained her triple axel, and she debuted it during the Grand Prix series. And also she added 2 axels in her free skate. 2 of the triple axels, I mean. And so she became the 10th woman to land it in an international competition at that time. So that was just huge. Like, that set her apart from all of the other Eteri skaters, because she actually debuted with the what known as the 3A, so Sasha Trusova and Shcherbakova. And so Sasha had her 9 million quads and was just fighter. And then Anna was just this beautiful skater that also had quads. But here was her ticket to win, which was the triple axel. Like, if you look back on how she won, a lot of times it was her short program put her so far ahead that even the quads from the others in their free skate couldn't get up to that level, essentially. And so with her, in her programs that year, were just spot on. Like, her Angel program is top 10 probably my favorite, actually. Let's just not even underscore, like, probably one of my favorite programs ever. Like, this is something I like to pull up and show people whenever they're asking about certain skating. Like, why do you like it? What is it about it? Definitely want to show them this one so they can see kind of what I see when it comes to figure skating. And I regret to this day, like, not getting to see this in person. Like, I wish, boy, do I wish I would have traveled to see it. Like, I was at my postdoc at the time, and I just didn't have the availability to travel. I don't know why I didn't. I wish I would have, but I wish I could have seen it. Like, I wish she would redo this somewhere so I could see it. Like, this program, still to this day, love it. It's just so magical. And also with her free program, she was able to pull off the campiness of Twilight. It was something at first I thought, I'm not gonna like this. And she proved me wrong. Like, it was just fun. It was fun seeing a teenager enjoying a program and getting to skate to something that they enjoy. And so one of the things the docuseries kept pointing out is she was so successful against the 3A, Sasha and Anna, and she won every international competition during that season, except, of course, when it came to Russian National, she got silver. But other than that, she was just the winner. Like, she was unbeatable. And one thing the docuseries really highlighted is she was set to likely win the 2020 Worlds, and then the pandemic happened. Like, I don't think that the documentary mentioned the other Worlds from Junior Worlds. But this is, again, like another World that she missed out on. And we all predicted that she was going to win, unless Sasha Trusova could manage, love her to death, but unless she could have managed to get her adrenaline under control to land all 5 quads. Pretty much we all predicted that Aliona would win. And unfortunately, the pandemic happened and it was canceled. I mean, I remember going back to wishing I could see her skate. So I lived in Maine at the time, and I remember thinking, I could probably drive to Montreal and watch this. And then, of course, as the world happened, I thought, that's not going to happen. And then everything shut down and there wasn't any Worlds. But regardless, this is like just the worst luck for her. And I worry that she's never going to, I pretty much can honestly say, I don't think she's ever going to have her Worlds moment. And that is just really sad to think about. And it breaks my heart for her. And it's just wild to think about how quick her success went away. Before I move on, though, I also want to mention, like, she was so successful that she even won the 2020 ISU Best Newcomer Award. And I think that was over Zoom or something. It was like probably one of the, like, not to digress too much, but it was probably honestly one of the most unintentionally awkward award ceremony things ever. Just seeing all the people on Zoom when they're like, so-and-so's won. But anyway, like, you can also see, like, she's in that with Sasha Trusova. And I felt for Sasha Trusova at the time, because Sasha Trusova, I know, must have been like, never a bride, always a bridesmaid, like getting silver or bronze. And then when it came to this, Aliona rightfully won. But anyway, one thing to the docuseries, now keep in mind, I'm, again, watching a translated version, and I'm a little inattentive. So not only am I watching translated, I could have missed some things along the way, but I don't believe the docuseries really went into how Kostornaia processed having such a successful season and then having the Worlds kind of yanked from her. And I could go back and watch it and probably see, knowing my luck, it'd be like right there. But anyway, and so that's one thing I would have liked for it to go into more detail about. And I don't know if it would have just been kind of awkward for her to say, yeah, no, I would have won. But that's just kind of one thing that would be nice to, just kind of witness. So in the time from when they were not training anymore, there wasn't a whole lot going on that we could see when it came to Aliona and her training. There was this clip that was posted of her returning to the rink and having to kind of relearn to skate. But things looked like, okay, they're getting ready for the new season. But then, dun dun dun, next chapter. So then she leaves Tutberidze. So the parts of the docuseries about Kostornaia leaving Eteri, that's kind of where it was kind of difficult to watch. And there's parts where I'm like, is this cultural? Is this my psychologist brain thinking too many different things at once? I don't know. It was just difficult. And I kind of get the backstory. So in July 2020, Kostornaia and Alexandra Trusova left Eteri. And so an article I read is that Eteri initially reported they split ways because Kostornaia's refusal to share the ice with other teammates. There's always the thing saying that she didn't want to train with the children. She was tired of training with the children. I did read an article where Kostornaia said there would be like 12 children on the ice at once, and it made it difficult to actually train. And then I remember back in like 2020, there was all this discussion of like she didn't get to skate to a song she wanted to, and then someone else got to skate to the song. But Aliona eventually summed it up basically by saying she felt like she grew up, she wanted a collaborative approach, and she felt like she was not getting a collaborative approach. And so she decided to leave. The reactions throughout like articles I read in a documentary were kind of pro-Eteri by being like, she shouldn't have left. This was the worst thing ever. Her mom was devastated despite probably knowing everything that was going on that Aliona had talked about. And in fact, there was the former choreographer who had mentioned that she left due to hormones and being starstruck. I mean, star fever. I don't even know. I haven't read a whole lot. You know how like when you go to like the Russian news and like every time something happens, they'll call somebody just to get their reaction. And then like there's like 7 million articles about this is so-and-so's reaction. Like usually whenever this former choreographer or like hers has a reaction, I haven't read it, but I do think he does tend to maybe say things that stirs things up just because of the reaction to him on Reddit and stuff, but I don't know. But anyway, so essentially the takeaway from him is that she was starstruck and hormone, and I don't know which part, I don't know what he means by that, but regardless, there seemed to be backlash with many different reasons, although no one seemed to really listen or list what Aliona mentioned as her reasons. The docuseries also didn't go into a whole lot about Sergey and kind of his role in her leaving. And the only articles I could find is where she mentioned that she initially left because Sergey was the one that taught her jumps. And so she followed him. I don't know the whole story behind it, so I'm not going to speculate, but I was just kind of hoping that maybe that would get discussed a bit, but it did not. So when she joined Angels of Plushenko, I remember that Plushenko or somebody had reported that she was actually injured, like came to him injured. And so she didn't debut until the 4th stage of the Russian Cup. And I think back then, like their Russian Cup was done because there wasn't any Grand Prix series going on. So they had like a bunch of Russian Cup events. And so she did win the silver medal there, and she also won the silver medal at the 2020 Rostella. She kind of struggled, like she under-rotated 3 of her triple jumps and lost levels on her non-jump elements, and then she ended up withdrawing from I think it was like 2 other competitions due to illness, and so she really just didn't have the best of time. And unfortunately, kind of what helped maybe paint her picture as something that kind of is chaotic is in January that year, she announced, well, I'm going to have another new free program. And so somebody keep in mind, though, all of us were spiraling at the time when we heard that because she originally had 2 programs from Eteri because they had started training them already. Then she got 2 more when she went over to Angels of Plushenko. And then suddenly like, nope, I'm going to have another one. So then she ended up attending the Russian Cup final in which she struggled and ended up finishing 6th overall and did not qualify for the Worlds in Stockholm. And something that Maya had pointed out is that a lot of people had kind of sat and thought, okay, she's going to, be different. Let's watch and see what's different about her. And that you can't really judge how a coaching situation is based upon when somebody first, switches to a coach. And unfortunately, she seemed to have a lot of different things going on at that time. So on top of getting ill and on top of coming injured, she just struggled. And based upon like the docuseries and interviews read online, Aliona was given a whole lot more independence at Angels of Plushenko, which kind of resulted in the opposite, where she noticed that she was training less. And one thing I felt was funny that was in a docuseries, and several articles I read, is that she does not perceive a man as authority. And so she does better with women. And somebody in the docuseries had mentioned that if she goes to a man, she'd go, oh, I don't want to do this. And that it's easier for her to get by with that. But overall, she did not have a successful time when she was under Angels of Plushenko. It seemed like a combination of so many factors. So then back to Eteri. So in March, it was announced that Kostornaia was in the process of negotiating a return to Eteri. And then it led to this amazing, memorable moment from Danny G that I almost forgot about until I stumbled upon it, where for whatever reason, he opened up, I think it's Paint, like remember that like thing on the computer where you can go to Paint, and wrote, "We didn't decide yet." And actually, I remember we were all tickled to death back then because they're like, he wrote it in English. He wrote this for us. And what makes me laugh is there was an article about it on the sports news, Russian sports news. And I think even like one of my Reddit things was on there where I'm just like, LOL, he wrote this just for us. But anyway, it led to this magical moment that was funny. And so Aliona ended up being accepted under a probationary period in which she must go by all their training and then get her triple axel again. And of course, her mother was tickled to death about this, which I'm still like, oh my gosh, I need to know the dynamics and I need to stop thinking of this like a psychologist. Because again, there could be cultural things you need to just erase. Take out my psychologist brain and go on. But one thing that she had done shortly after is she was featured on the news saying, although she was smiling at Angels of Plushenko, she was not smiling because she turns out she was off the podium. So one thing, and I don't believe this was touched on a lot when it came to the docuseries, but I read it in an interview that Aliona felt at the time should have not been interviewed at the same time as Terry, because she actually felt that she was coaxed into saying that she was unhappy and could not succeed without Eteri. And I'll be honest, I remember that video just came off a little, you could tell something was afoot. It wasn't right. But anyway, so once the season started, she just didn't have the same success. And it makes sense when you hear about all the injuries she was going through. So she won like bronze at Finlandia Trophies Challenger event. And then before Skate Canada, for whatever reason, she decided to change her programs back to the programs that were originally set for her during the prior season that they created before she left for Angels of Plushenko. And so she attempted the triple axel at this event for Skate Canada, and she couldn't do it. I think she did it, and it was called at a quarter. And then she won bronze at the event. And so she attempted the triple axel again, and this is where she couldn't do it. She ended up falling at the French Grand Prix, but still won the silver medal. And then in December 2021, it was announced that Kostornaia was forced to withdraw from 2022 Russian Championships due to a hand fracture. In the docuseries, Aliona had mentioned that she was trying to trap triple axel because she was, she had to get it back. And she put her hand down and fell and broke her arm. And so then she went and got a cast. And Eteri reportedly told her that she should have gotten permission before wearing a cast. And then something that made my brain explode, it made me so perplexed, is when the choreographer guy was like, well, if Terry said she didn't need a cast, she would know that she didn't need a cast because she knows best. And then that's when my soul left the building and I died inside and I didn't know what to do with my life then. But anyway, so she didn't skate for nationals, and then Eteri had asked her to quit. And so that's when they ended that. And at one point, this wasn't during a docuseries, it was in an article I read where actually shortly after that, Kostornaia described Eteri as a conveyor belt of champions. And it caused a lot of controversy. It was one of those good old-fashioned, we're going to call this person and talk to them about this. They called everyone down the line to get their opinion. So after hearing, all this, her mother, still was devastated by all of this, but not what you think she'd be devastated by. She was just wish she would have stayed with Eteri. Okay. So then on to the pairs move. And I'm kind of skipping a bit because she ended up getting with a different coach in between then, but then that didn't last long because of injuries, and on to pairs. So one thing the docuseries did highlight was really something actually that a lot of us had wondered. Like, there was a lot of kind of struggling to figure out her purpose for moving to pairs, because unlike different countries, like in America, if you are struggling as a single skater, it seems sometimes because of kind of the depth of the field in pairs in our country, it might be a good idea, as opposed to Russia, where their pairs are really, really strong. And actually something that got lost in maybe either the translation or just didn't get mentioned is, I don't believe the documentary actually did go into details of why she ended up with pairs. And I actually couldn't quite figure out all the steps along the way, and it could have, I don't know. All I remember based upon like articles and part of the docuseries was, it seems that Aliona and her husband, they were like training for a show, and then the coach was like, after a while, like, hey, because they did pairs for a show. And the coach along the way was like, hey, you guys are going to do pairs. And they eventually made a decision about switching to pairs. But I did find in an interview at one point that Aliona switched to pair skating because of too many injuries and finding jumping painful. So she had mentioned like there's less jumps required, which sounds really, really sad to think about. Like, she's probably in pain during all of this, and especially I'm just wondering how the throws go. And I think somebody even asked her how the throws go, and it's not the same, but whatever. So one thing that is kind of highlighted, despite, you know, this kind of confusion about why she went to pairs, is her coach has mentioned that she was actually amazingly fast at picking up the pairs elements. But one thing that docuseries did highlight is a couple things. Like, it still seems like they're two single skaters. They skate as if they're by themselves. And one thing that it does bring up a lot, and that gets brought up a lot also in articles, is kind of how much her skating skills are so much at a higher level than her partners. And also something that gets, you know, noticed a lot is she, you know, is at a different fame level, basically. And so apparently all the press questions are directed towards Aliona, and this ends up frustrating Aliona. And so one thing this series did kind of point out is just how difficult their communication is during, well, maybe her communication during their training. And so according to her, she had mentioned that she's been trying to be patient with him for 2 years. They can't communicate anymore. But it's pretty, you know, it's fairly obvious that she has a low frustration tolerance. And I don't quite think that is, you know, something new, as much as I'm trying to think, like, is this because of a lot of stress? But there was an article recently where Maxim Trenkov, had said that, you know, even before she became a pair skater, when she was at Eteri's rink, he was just trying to watch her, and she swore at him, like, what are you doing standing there watching me? And it like changed his viewpoint of her. So I don't know if like her being fiery is always a thing, and like you add in the stress and it's boom. But those training sessions were a lot. And yeah, there were just a lot. And so I just kind of wonder how much they can really sustain this, because something's going to either be lost, either like both the training when it comes, like them being able to be a successful pair, or the relationship, or both. Like, just watching this, I don't want to like get in my psychologist hat, but that was concerning. And again, it might just be the stress. I don't know. Anyway. So one thing that kind of has also been highlighted in the docuseries and also in articles is kind of maybe Aliona's expectations about how their pair success will be doesn't quite match what kind of the rest of the world would expect, or the rest of Russia. So she mentioned in an interview that judging in Russia is much stricter than in international stages. And at one point she had placed 4th at one of the Grand Prix, and she had mentioned in several interviews that they felt like their short program was underscored. And in the interviews with the docuseries and in articles I found, people are like, why would she expect this? Why would you expect high scores when you're a new pair? And also just like a lot of discussion about how, you know, they don't really seem to jive that well yet on the ice together. And so this brings us to the time off. After watching clips of this, and again, I know I'm watching a short spigot, I don't think that's the right way to say it, but short a bit of time with them. But just based upon the short thing I watched, I'm not quite surprised that they agreed to take us some time off. But kind of getting like some backstory a little bit. it's interesting to kind of think of like the series of events. So in September of 2024, during an interview, Kostornaia said that she would be ready to keep skating until she's 40, to be like Deanna, and if their health allowed them to do so. But then shortly later, Aliona posted from a hospital a photo of herself an IV in her hand, and it was later deleted. And then in October, and Aliona announced something like, we're still, recovering. We're going to take maybe about 6 months off. And I think some of this may be a weird translation, because at first I was reading something that said they're going to take 6 months. Either that or really is just confusing in life. And then suddenly there is the announcement that they would be taking off 2 years due to physical and psychological concerns. And in a docuseries, she's like, we're not discussing this further. And so it seems like, okay, like initially in October in the beginning, it was like, this is pneumonia, we're recovering. And then boom, now it's like psychological and physical. There's been so much speculation. There was at one point I mentioned that they would end up wanting, like there was a rumor saying that they wanted to transfer to Azerbaijan. And then their response was like, no, our only tie to that is like pomegranate juice, which now I need to Google and see, are there like amazing pomegranates there? But anyway, and so there's been a lot of speculation, but so far nothing has been confirmed. But it seems like they're still doing shows still. So that is interesting. So overall, I don't think Aliona had shared anything that was too new when it came to anything in this docuseries. I think maybe people's reactions to her was something that was new, like reactions to her leaving Eteri. And of course, her reaction to her partner during training is something that's new for me to observe. It's just interesting to see, though, because if you watch, I watched some of their wedding clips, and they look very happy there. And so it might be something where they really want to consider, like, what is our next step? Because it's just based upon it. So I know this is like a snapshot in time, but when I go back and read like a lot of different interviews and stuff, this doesn't seem like it may seem more than a snapshot is what I'm trying to say. And so overall, this was just an interesting docuseries. I really hope they do it on maybe each of the 3A. So let's do one on Sasha. Let's do one on Anna. It was just really nice to kind of have that. Act like 2019 was so far away, but it really was that blast from the past of the 3A. And so I hope you guys enjoyed kind of this run through the docuseries as well as basically information. This feels kind of like a biography type of episode. So see y'all next time. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this.